And we love you. We give you today. Amen.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. You're worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Sing worthy. You're worthy of every song we could ever sing. You're worthy of every praise we could ever bring. You're worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you, Jesus. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. You're worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone, and I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins, and I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. No, I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. And I am surrounded by the arms of the Father, and I am surrounded by songs of deliverance, and we've been liberated from our bondage. We are the sons and the daughters, so let us sing our freedom. Oh, 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 you split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and say that I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it, and my fears were drowned in perfect love. And you rescued me so I could stand and sing that I am a child of God. Oh, I am a child of God. Yes, I am a child of God. You give life, You are love. You bring light to the darkness. You give hope. You restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. You give life. You give life. You are love. You bring light to the darkness. You give hope. You restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing that great are you, Lord. Sing it out, church. Oh, all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing that great are you, Lord. All the earth, oh, all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing that great are you, Lord. One more time, 'cause he's worthy. Oh, all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing that great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. And great are you, Lord.
Can we just stay in this place for a second? When we were doing worship, I had this really beautiful picture. So we just want to stay. Holy Spirit, we thank you. We thank you that you're so eager to talk to us, so eager to communicate with us, so eager for us to know how much you love us. And that's so transforming. And so the picture I had, I just wanted to release to you. I saw us walking behind the Lord, and he was going before us, and we were looking at his back. And suddenly he turned around and he was walking backwards, but he was facing us. And then all of a sudden he stopped and we walked right into him. And I felt like there's this moment of engagement where it's not just a work to follow him, it's a love story to follow him. And he so wants to look at us in the eyes and so wants us to know exactly where we are. Exactly where we are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, exactly right here, right now, in spirit and in truth. I love you. I love you. I love you. Exactly the way you are, I love you. And it was this moment that the works were set down, and it was all set down, and he said, I would stay here forever with you. Forever. And so, Lord, Holy Spirit, we thank you. You speak to hearts today that we are worth that moment of stopping and engaging. That it's longing, deep cries to deep. And I thank you, Jesus. Thank you, my Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. And Lord, we give you today, we give you everything that you want to do. Because you are so good and you are so faithful to finish the good things you've started. Lord, that you would keep breathing and brooding over us, over our futures, over the good things you have planned. Thank you for your kindness and your goodness, that this is where we get to be today. That this opportunity is our joy and gift. So we thank you. Thank you, Jesus. We give you this morning. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Well, it's probably not a good idea to ask how many of you got in fights on the way home, but some of you already came up and talked with me about that.
We didn't. We drove in separate cars. If you ever have that question, an option, 2 cars. FYI, get it right.
These skills, maybe, especially if you're newer to them, they really, really work. My wife and we shared a little bit last night, but my wife and I practiced naming our feelings. Like we went to that page 20 hundreds of times to the point where I thought we need an abbreviation for our feeling words. And so we called them F words. So, because that bridge of trying to get to the right words sometimes was very difficult. And, but it really, and even to the point where sometimes, maybe you're in a space where it's helpful to have someone else walk you through that process with you. And that's what we did. We found, I was scouring through, I was looking through the How We Love book, and I was like, where are these guys from? Like, I don't know, when I first went through it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I realized I would travel the world to find out where they were having a conference, and I would go. And all of a sudden, I read in the back, oh my gosh, they have a place down the street. They have this place called Relationship 180, and counseling center, and my wife and I, we went there, and it's they have back here in the back, maybe you saw, they have a table back there, and there's a slide up front, there should be a slide up here that has a QR code where if you would like more information, you can get more information from there if you need help in having people walk through that with you. I strongly encourage it. They have some great therapists there. So with that, if you would, unless you have anything, if you would, give Mark and Amy and Mylan and Kay a warm welcome.
Turn it on.
It's always good to start the morning with worship, isn't it? How many of you felt some stirring up of some childhood wounds and feelings from last night? Yes. We're aware of that, and today we want to show you what's the way of healing through that. Do you think God sees and has known about those experiences all along? And he longs to reach down and touch them and begin to heal them, but he's not going to do that without other people. It's not going to be an instant flash of, oh, yeah, that hurts, boom, now it doesn't. My husband and I learned to talk on a deeper and deeper level, and a lot about childhood after the 15-year mark of our marriage. And he became Jesus with arms on to me. And I became Jesus with arms for him. And sometimes that happens in a group setting. Sometimes it happens in a marriage. Sometimes it happens with a therapist. But people, you need people to heal, because wounds start in relationship and they're only healed in relationship. And unresolved trauma shows up every day in your marriage or in your other relationships or with your kids until you understand it, see the impact of it, and learn to resolve it with the help of Jesus and the Holy Spirit.
It's great to be here this morning, be with you guys and see you all. Some of you have moved, and that's not okay. You changed seats. Now, like, you guys were down here, and you were over there. You were in the same place. That's good. So I'm just saying, be careful, all right? Because I'm watching you, all right? Just want you to know that. I'm not a stalker, but I am watching. All right. Relationship 180 is a place that has resources should you need it. Mark is a marriage and family therapist. His office is over in the Newport Costa Mesa area, and he is also an amazing person that we have enjoyed working with. We started praying, Kay and I, 5 years ago, that God would give us a couple to hand over how we love to, and a succession strategy, somebody to pass a baton to. Because Mark's from England, he calls it a baton. So I learned to speak English being around him. So that's really cool. Now, his bride is a registered nurse. She's also a mental health nurse practitioner. So she is very familiar with the entire mental health world, actually sees patients. And so we realized getting to be with Mark and Amy and turn the baton over to you is such a privilege and such an answer to prayer. And we're so very excited about that. We are going to have our first session. We're going to explain a little bit more. As Mark, you said last night, we're going to show you the way out of this. How many of you realize more clearly which of these attachment styles you are? Raise your hand. Don't point at your spouse because you know theirs. I'm asking you about yours. Don't do that. That's funny. Yeah, so that's important because you need to own that. A little later, I'm going to tell you what the Apostle Paul says about that old man. It needs to be put aside so we can grow up to look more like Jesus. So, Kay, we wanted to just briefly talk about the similarities and differences and do a little recap about each of the attachment styles. So, Kay is no longer a full-fledged avoider, okay? As you can probably tell, she's very much. I started to stay in touch with her feelings, but I learned their F words, and it's the first time I've ever heard that before. And
F words that are okay.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I want to thank Vineyard for that new elevation of our work. So yes, I started to say I appreciate, but I'm not sure if I do. I'm not going to use that term in the future. I'll say you do, but I'm not going to say I do it. Just those people in Laguna Niguel, they do that. But that was pretty funny. I'll give you credit for it. All right, Kay, just summarize really quickly the avoider and the pleaser, if you would, and then I'll summarize the other ones really quick.
Okay, so there's similarities and differences between each of these styles. And many times, if you took the test online, you might score some in the avoider and the pleaser, some in the pleaser and the vacillator, so forth. So here's the differences, just to help you distinguish. Both avoiders and pleasers are alike in one way. They avoid conflict. Avoiders don't want to talk about it because it gets messy, and they don't want to do anything emotional or too messy, and they like to live up in the flat line here. Not too high, not too low. And pleasers are afraid of conflict because you might get mad at me, and if you're mad at me, I'm going to be anxious and not okay, so so there's a level of dishonesty between both of these because they're protecting their own attachment wounds. The difference is a pleaser is a proximity seeker. They like to know you're around, and they like to be here. Avoiders don't even know if you're around because they're really not looking. And they stopped looking long before they met you. And if you do too much of this to them, what does the avoider do? They're like, ugh, you're too needy. You're too close. So those are the similarities and differences. Pleasers do have more empathy, I would say, than avoiders. They'll be, oh, I'm sorry. They don't want to go too deep into that if it's going to get messy. But they have more empathy. Empathy is something I had to first receive so that I could value it and then learn to give it. You can't value something that you never received. And so we learned to have comfort in our relationship, and that made a big difference.
I would say the other thing about a pleaser, Kay, is they're very hyper-vigilant and observant. They're always watching you to see what's going on.
Right.
And watching other people to see what's happening and trying to deduce what's going on inside of them and whether they're okay or not. See, I'm only okay, used to be only okay if you're okay. If you're smiling at me, then I'm okay. My nickname used to be Smilin' Mylin because I smile so much. Now I smile when I want to. Now I don't want to. Why did I smile? Because if I could get you to smile, then I felt relaxed around you. It was purely for me. All right?
What about the pleaser and the vacillator?
What are they?
They're both similar in this way. They're both proximity seekers. In other words, they both want to know that you're around and that everything's good and that you see me and I see you and we're having a good moment of connection. The difference is vacillators will please to try and make connection happen, but if it doesn't happen, anxiety builds, and as anxiety builds, that's when the anger comes out, because for vacillators, dumping anger is a huge relief of their anxiety. They don't always know that. But vacillators will tell you after they're angry and they protest, I feel a lot better.
The family doesn't.
That's true. Other people may not feel better depending on the strength of the protest, but they feel better because they just dumped a boatload of anxiety. Pleasers are not going to protest if they're disappointed. So the difference then is, people come up and say, well, I think I'm a pleaser more than a vacillator. And I say, do you get angry? And if the answer is yes, then you're more of a vacillator. Pleasers get angry after age 50 when they finally say, hey, when is it going to be my turn? But it takes them years to get to the point of recognizing that they're always giving and not receiving all that much.
Vacillators are also, how can I say this? They're masterful historians. Why did you do that? You did that last Thanksgiving. No, it wasn't. No, it was the year before. It was 2023. You did exactly that same thing. And why do they have such an astute, acute memory? Because as you indicated last night, or you did, that they're called preoccupied in the attachment literature. So when you're preoccupied, you're always spinning that story in their head. Why did they do that to me? Why did I feel like, well, they gave so-and-so a hug, but they didn't give me a hug. I wonder, why did they do that? And then over and over and over again. So pleasers don't bring up bad history.
Right. They're not going to, bad history is forgotten.
Why would I want to bring up bad news? See, pleasers are good news junkies. And we always smile. And we want everybody to be happy. Yeah. And we don't, this is a Jedi mind trick. You don't want to remember yesterday, do you? These are not the droids you're looking for. You know, we're just erasing that from our heads, but historically, vacillator's do have memories. Oh, and in so doing, they'll tell you your motivations and intentions as to why you did that. I know why you did that. I hear a lot of nervous chuckles out there. But it's true. All right, so what's the difference between the pleaser and the victim? By the way, we're on page 10, if you want to look at this. We're just doing a brief overview. You can read it later. What's the difference between a pleaser and a victim? They're both very fear-based, but one of the biggest differences is that the pleaser will freeze momentarily if they are faced with confrontation. And then they quickly then try to fix or do something to make you happy and smile again and change the subject, et cetera, et cetera. Victims, when they are triggered, they often dissociate. They disconnect from the present. They've been doing this a long time. If you've been in a home where you faced abuse, neglect, misuse, where your family of origin, whatever remnants there are of that in the home, you can't predict anything, and if you're hurt, if you're abused, if you are sexually harmed, and so many women have been, a lot of times a victim will dissociate. It's a natural thing that the brain does to disconnect from the present, to alleviate the pain of what you feel now, and to actually not literally be here or mentally be here. It's an avoidance mechanism. So they're similar, but typically the victim has faced more trauma in their lives, whereas the pleaser has not necessarily faced so much trauma. And would you add anything to that, Kate?
No, I think that's good. What about the vacillator or the controller? What do they have in common? Anger. Just a matter of degrees. All these lifestyles exist on a continuum. You can have some traits of a secure connector and maybe be a mild avoider or a mild pleaser, or you could have more childhood issues and be a very strong vacillator, a very strong avoider. It just depends on your history as to how strong these styles are. Both get angry, but for different reasons. Vacillators are angry because you didn't see me, you didn't connect with me, you misunderstood me, you're not, you're missing me. Controllers are angry because you're not complying. There's a big difference. Say, when a controller is angry, they're angry because you got out of the box. Why do they need so much control? To make their lives predictable. There is nothing predictable about the life of a child that lives in an abusive home.
Right.
You never know when the next horrible thing is going to happen, or just no one's going to be there. And so you, as a controller, if you can control your world, you avoid all the negative feelings, and all feelings get converted into anger versus fear, terror, humiliation, shame. Those are very painful feelings, and anger overrides them. Of course, anger can be a separating emotion for you and everyone else in the family, and God says, be angry, but don't sin. Don't let your anger become a way of hurting and damaging people. And of course, that's going to take some work if you came from a home where anger was just freely expressed and demonstrated and there were no boundaries. You have to learn how to manage those emotions. And there's a word therapists in the psychological world uses a lot called dysregulation. And that means you aren't in a place where you can even have a conversation. Dysregulation means I am really stirred up inside. It could be as an avoider, it could be very quiet. As a vacillator or controller, it could be very loud. But what is true is your right brain is flooded with emotion and stress, and your left brain just goes offline. And that's all the cognitive, let's have a conversation part. So if you're trying to have a conversation with someone who's highly distressed, it's not going to work. The distress has to come down before they can be present to have a conversation. And that's especially true for the vacillator and the controller, but for all other styles as well. Do you have anything to that?
I would just say that different styles use the autonomic nervous system in different ways. Yeah. For the pleaser, they freeze, right? For the avoider, they flee.
Right.
For the vacillator, we fight. So what I can learn from the pleaser is, hey, I can take a step back, right? I can also learn from you, but I do need to learn how to re-engage.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
So I would say just one more thing. All these love styles or attachment styles, they're all controlling, each in their own way. How does the avoider control? La, 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 la. They don't hear you. Oh, you were demonstrating. I wonder what happened to you. You were suddenly disappeared. But I didn't get anxious because I couldn't see you because I've grown. So, fight, flight, freeze. It's another one that's been tossed in recently, fawn. As response mechanisms to what people do. They're all controlling. Pleasers control by insisting on trying to please you and fix stuff and to keep insisting on trying to do something, and it's controlling. Kay's already explained the other ones. So,
let me add one more quick word to that. You all have a stress response. It might be one of those that links to your attachment style, or it might be something like you have to be cleaning all the time, or when you're stressed, I stop making eye contact. I didn't even know that. Or you might turn to an addiction when you're stressed. Or we've got all kinds of ways we manage stress, but you probably learned your favorite from childhood, and you maybe still are doing that same thing to relieve stress.
Yeah, I would say even stronger than that, Kay, that if you were doing something now, you've been doing it before you ever got married and turned into an adult. You've probably been doing the same thing.
Did you have a question? What do controllers do with stress? They get controlling. In other words,
really angry.
Yeah, it's like you moved the cheese, you need to put the cheese back where it belongs, or you need to tell me where you were today, right now. Because not knowing is their trigger. Not knowing is really scary, because not knowing as a kid was, oh no, when's it gonna happen? You can never relax in an abusive home.
No.
You're just waiting for the next blow up.
Okay, so let me define a trigger really quick, and then we're going to ask Mark and Amy to introduce core patterns. What happens when you put these together in couples or in groups, okay? Because that's when the fireworks start, and we want to help you learn to get out of that, all right? But before I do, I want to explain what a trigger is. Kay used the word flooded a moment ago. When you get triggered, unbeknownst to you, and you did not invite it in, you start to feel very uncomfortable inside. And a trigger is when your brain grabs the trauma and hurt from the past and crams it into the present. And you did not invite it there. But all of a sudden, here in the present, you're up here like this, you're just in not a good place all of a sudden. And at that particular place, Kay, your left brain shuts down, your right brain is flaring up into this agitated, active place. And when the left brain shuts down, you can't hear, you can't think, you can't reason, you can't come up with answers. Sometimes you can't speak. So if somebody is trying to get you to talk or reason with you, it doesn't work, like Kay just said. So what we have to do if a person is at a heightened state is learn to talk right brain to right brain. I can tell you're feeling something that's powerful. Something hurts inside. You look like you are going through some pain right now. That's a whole different start to a conversation, isn't it? So different. So Mark and Amy, tell us about core patterns and what on earth possibly was the core pattern look like with two vacillator's?
Yes, so last night I said, yesterday was the bad news. Today's going to be the good news, okay? So I told you about the science last night. Today I'm going to tell you about the math, okay? So to have a healthy, secure relationship, it takes two healthy, secure people. Cannot take two insecurely attached people, put them together, and expect that they're going to have a healthy, happy, secure, emotionally healthy relationship, right? That doesn't make any sense. This is going to bend, this is going to break. So we need to do the reconditioning work inside us. Last night, you took the love style quiz. You know what we just did for you? We just gave you guys a diagnosis, okay? It's too generic just to say the problem is sin, okay? Because if you go to the doctor and the doctor says you're sick and you run some tests and you go back and the doctor says, yep, you're sick, okay, that's not going to help you. You need a diagnosis so that you can know what your treatment plan is to get to the prognosis, and that's what we're going to tell you today. So what do each of these insecure attachment styles look like when they come together? So we're going to show you the different combinations so that we can help you understand that even though you're fighting and maybe you're having conflict about different things, the way that it plays out is the same. It's very, very predictable with just a few minor variations. So we're going to role play some of these and have you guess. And Amy and I are going to do ours, and then Mylon and Kay are going to do a few here. But before we do that, last night we played some songs. And so in a second, I'm going to ask Sammy to play our wedding song. Instead of walking down the aisle to Here Comes the Bride, we thought, let's pick a different song. And so we came up and we picked a song, and it had a really cool intro. And so that's what we played going down the aisle. It was just the instrumental part. But we're going to keep playing it, and I want you to hear a few of the words. Okay, so Sammy, play that wedding song, please.
You got it.
Isn't that cool, this intro? So this is Amy coming in, walking down the aisle toward me. Just that tension building.
We were on the dopamine high there. We had no idea what the lyrics really meant.
Yeah.
See the stone set in your eyes. See the thorn twist in your side. I'll wait for you. Sleight of hand and twist of fate. On a bed of nails she makes me wait. And I wait without you. With or without you. With or without you. Through the storm.
All right, thanks, Sammy. Okay,
I was getting activated just
I'm
like,
going to
when's it
read
gonna be
some.
over?
I'm
Play
going to
the
read
whole
some of
song?
these lyrics. I never understood this song. I love this song, but I never understood it. See the stone set in your eyes. She's angry. See the thorn twist in your side. She's hurt, and I'll wait for you. I know something's brewing here. Sleight of hand and twist of fate. on a bed of nails, she makes me wait. Okay, here's the protest. Isn't that what it feels like when the vacillator's protesting? You're waiting on a bed of nails? And then I'll wait without you. So first of all, I was waiting for you. Now I'm waiting without you. I'm waiting for you to connect. With or without you. With or without you. Okay, here's the protest. Through the storm, we reach the shore. Okay, the protest's over. You give it all, but I want more. Okay, now the protest is over. Now I'm mad. And now I'm waiting for you to come back and apologize to me. Okay, and then here's the end. My hands are tied, my body bruised. She's got me with nothing to win and nothing left to lose. Isn't that how the push-pull sounds for the vacillator? You're all beaten up, and there's nothing that you can do. You're stuck. So,
You just made our wedding song that much more romantic.
very ironic that we picked that song with those words. Okay, so we're going to role play for you kind of what it looked like for us. And so I told you about that we had a big conflict in the car on the way here the first time, so we're going to role play a conflict in the car.
He
Okay.
kind of wants me to like pump up my inner vacillator
Yes,
on
pump
this.
it up
So I'm going to
because-
try.
and I'll try
okay?
and pump it up too.
And getting ready for this work, it reminded me, we used to say sometimes, take it off the boil. Like, and that was kind of our cue, like, you're getting activated, chill a little bit. Like, and we could do that, like, as we are growing. And I've noticed we haven't really had to say take it off the boil as much.
We're boiling less.
Boiling less. Okay.
Just simmering.
So, but let me get boiled up here.
Okay, we're driving.
Okay. We should have left earlier. There's so much traffic.
It's going to be fine. It always gets like that here. It's going to ease
Watch
up
out for
around
that
the-
car.
Hey, I see him. He's coming into me.
Can you just pick a lane? I'm doing my makeup.
I'm trying to pick the fastest lane here, okay? I'm trying to get you where you want to go.
Where are you going now?
Well, we got to get gas if we're going to make it there.
We can get gas after the restaurant. It's fine.
No, I want to get gas now because there's no good, it's not always easy to find a gas station down there.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Costco.
Costco? Like you're
It's 20 cents
you're
cheaper
gonna be
at
so
Costco.
selfish. Save 50 cents of gas. Like I want to hang out with my
Selfish?
friends. Like I've worked hard.
I thought I was going to meet your friends, so this is about you hanging out with your friends?
It's important to me, yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if I'm going?
Well, I don't want you to act like this.
You know what? You're the one this is your car. You didn't put gas in it. This is your fault. I'm going to pull over. I'm going to get an Uber home, and you can go and hang out with your friends. Okay? I'm done.
I'm done. If you do that, you will never be invited with me again.
Fine. See ya. For that.
Why did you clap for that?
Well, I'm thankful they knew that that was like a performance, because hopefully it goes now like, thank you for driving so I can do my makeup. Please drive the speed limit.
I'll remind you. Of
So
that.
I feel safe.
I was driving on the right, by the way, because that's how I learned to drive.
I noticed that, Mark.
On this side. So this
I
was
noticed
actually-
you were on the
this was
right
actually
side,
natural
and
for
you were driving in England, Mark. I saw that.
How many people have conflicts in the car?
Oh, the rest of
yeah.
you are lying.
Yeah. And you can't get away. You cannot get away. So, okay, Mylan and Kay are going to role play a few popular ones here, and you guys are going to guess who they are, which attachment style each of them is.
Aren't we glad, by the way, that this is who we're passing the baton to? Yes. Because they've grown, and they're not the way they were imprinted. They've grown. All right. Hey, Kay, I'm home. I'm looking for some mail. Where'd you put the mail today?
Such a surprise for you. I've been waiting all day.
No. I have to find the mail. I got something coming to me.
You can. I know you love
Kay, I don't love the mail. I need the mail. It's time sensitive. Now, sometimes you move the mail, and sometimes
I got a surprise for you.
Okay, but sometimes I've seen you even throw mail away.
Throw the mail away.
Well, you did once.
I put it in your precious little place right here where you worship.
You know what, Kay?
Oh, you know what?
What?
This
Just
is how it is every day. I don't know why I'm so stupid. I think Oh, I got a surprise. I'm gonna show him. He's gonna be so excited. He'll probably take me out to dinner. And what? Of course, no. You do what you always do. You come home. You look at the mail. I know, no. I'll become a piece of mail. Hello, I'm a piece of mail. Now, do you see me?
It's from the bank.
All right,
and I
forget
need
it. Forget the surprise. I'm taking it back to the store. I'm so done with you.
Ugh. Man, she always moves the mail around. Sure hope she wants to have sex tonight.
Okay.
What are you guys laughing at?
Okay, who am I? The vacillator. I've been rehearsing what's going to come, and believe me, part of preoccupation is rehearsing and reviewing. I rehearse how I want it to be, and then it happens, and then usually I'm disappointed, and then I go review. I can't believe he did that. Da, 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 da. I ruminate. I don't know why I married him. I married the wrong person. I never saw this side of him. On and on it goes. I'm going to remember this for next time.
And
one
what
of the
was I?
trigglers for the vacillator is arrivals and departures. So she had this ideal expectation of what the arrival was going to be like. Really, what she wanted is nice, good connection coming through the door. That would, and then he could have checked the mail. But also just learning for him to check the mail and then get that. So learning to wait, there's balance. But arrivals and departures, be aware of that as a trigger.
Yeah.
So, what was I? The avoider. But they're also very controlling. See?
In the task part.
In my own way, I'm controlling. I am trying to get this thing done. Task mastery, get it done. I've even gone so far as if I did something that was not on my to-do list, I put it on there and then scratch it off. Do I have a person identify with me over there? Yay, sister.
I don't even have a list.
All right.
I tell him to put my things on his list.
Yeah, I'm her post-it note. All right, I keep track of things. Okay, so avoiders have a learned otherlessness. I made up that term. A learned otherlessness. If nobody ever talked to you back here in your childhood, nobody ever inquired, nobody ever noticed what was going on in your life, you learn to exist alone. You learn to motivate yourself, decide what you were going to do. You learn to just do. You didn't report to anybody. You didn't say, hey, everybody, I'm riding my bike down to the park and playing basketball. You never told anybody. You just got on your bike, rode down, played basketball, came back, and probably nobody even knew you were gone. Now, what makes us think that if we were trained like that, we're going to get married and all of a sudden know how to connect? Yeah. We don't. We have to untrain ourselves from that old patterning. All right, you ready for another one? These are the top 3 we see in our offices, by the way. That was the number 1. The vacillator avoider is the number 1 couple to go into a counseling office because they are so separate in terms of who they are, what they are, and what their needs are. All right, here's another one. Hey there, honey boo boo, I am home. How are you? You look so cute today. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm just looking what I'm going to cook for dinner.
Just a cheek kiss? I don't get a lip kiss?
Well, I'm just looking through the cookbook.
Oh, I like that recipe. Let's cook that together.
Oh, I don't need any help. The kids are outside. They've been waiting for you. Just go play. I'll do dinner. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm sure they're fine. Oh,
No,
I like that recipe too.
I don't even really
Hey,
know.
let's-
I don't
let's-
know. I don't think I have everything for that. Oh, let me look. What are you doing?
I'm looking to see if we have that.
I don't need help looking in the
Well,
refrigerator.
but you know what? I just was thinking we could cook that. And, here's another one I like, another recipe.
You know what? I don't need any
Is
help.
everything okay?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
You look bugged.
Well, because I'm trying to cook and you keep interrupting me.
So you're really not good, are you?
I know I'm fine.
You don't sound fine.
I am. I'm good. I'm fine.
You're shaking your head a lot and you're elevating your voice. There's something wrong with it. Is there anything else that's wrong? Something else I did?
No. Well, yeah, you could go play with the kids.
But I wanted to hang out with you and do this. The kids seem like they're doing okay.
Okay, you got it. That's so familiar from long ago.
That is so gaggy, isn't it?
What am I? Avoider. Just leave me alone. I've learned to do everything on my own. I don't need help. Avoiders don't need help. If you're an avoider, you're not asking for help. That's a growth goal. Okay. What is he? The pleaser.
A nauseating pleaser. I invaded her space. And who I do it for? Who'd I do it for? Me. Because I was trying to assuage my fears and anxieties. And I love what you said a minute ago, Amy, about arrivals and departures. Mm-hmm. Those are really critical because arrivals and departures, well, have they missed me today? Did they notice I was gone? Did they wonder when I'm going to get home?
Yeah, there's a lot of conflict around, and it's interesting to even ask your spouse, what were arrivals and departures like in your home growing up?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting question.
Okay.
Okay, one more, quickly, because we're running out of time again.
Another one out of the top 3 that come into our offices,
Hey,
okay?
Susie. Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry. I cannot believe you're going through this.
Okay, I am
horrible.
home. I wonder what she's doing.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so sorry.
Hey, I'm home.
Be right there. Yeah, I know I got to go, but yeah, it's terrible. I feel horrible for you.
What's
Yeah,
she doing?
I get
Talking to Susie.
All right.
I'm home.
Yeah,
Does
I really
she see
gotta
me?
go.
No.
Okay.
She's talking
All
to
right.
Susie.
All right. I got to go. Bye. Hi, honey.
So I walk. I used to walk through the door, and you would light up like a
Honey,
Christmas tree.
I am happy you're home.
Oh.
How about I'll go get you a Coke?
You know what? Don't try to make me feel better. You didn't see me.
How about a Diet Coke?
You didn't notice. Well, at least you know what I drink, Diet Coke and not real Coke, okay? And there could be people out in the audience that think that's horrible, so please don't say that again in front of the people, all right? Because there's
Okay.
any Diet Cokers out there. So anyhow, but I'm just irritated. I had a hard day, and I come in, and you're talking to Susie.
Well, honey,
no, I'm so sorry, Susie. I never
Susie
hear
just
that.
got a divorce.
I never hear that tone for me.
Oh, honey, don't be mad.
I'm going to go to the gym and work out.
Oh, no, I'm going to make your favorite dinner.
I'm going to the gym.
Oh, don't do that. Just stay here.
Okay, so what am I? Yeah, I want to be seen. And it doesn't take much to feel unseen. All right? It doesn't take much. She's talking on the phone, and I'm not acknowledged. I think I'm the biggest star on Broadway when I walk through the door. Actually, I act like that, but what I really want is to be seen or acknowledged. Why? Why is that so pivotal to me today? Because somewhere in my history, I didn't have it. Somewhere in my history, I was abandoned, neglected, not seen. So I have a high sensitivity to being seen or not seen. All right. What was Kay? A sweet pleaser, comforting Susie. I don't know what's going on with Susie, but she was sure there for her.
Okay, so how many of you relate to one of these role plays? Okay.
Raise your hand, seriously.
Okay,
Even if you see your neighbors doing this, raise your hand.
These are the most common 3. Someone says, what's the pleaser like? Where do you want to go to dinner?
I don't know. Where do you want to go?
I don't know. We went to Mexican last time. Do you want Mexican?
Well, I could. Is there anything else you want?
I don't know. Maybe Chinese? I don't know.
I don't either.
They have like a very conflict-free...
So tell me about that couple that came up.
We had a couple come up and say, we're pleaser, pastor and his wife. And we don't really fight. We're like, oh, no, you just can't decide, make a decision on anything. And you guys will do fine until there's a huge conflict in your life or a crisis. And then you're going to be lost because you're not going to know how to deal with emotions and feelings. And same for the avoider. Sometimes these guys hook up. Avoider is very homes and garden house. Probably no kids and a dog. It gets all the attention. Maybe kids, but though you can marry the same type, it's just less common.
So that couple said to you, last night we sat in the parking lot and we couldn't figure out where to go to dinner.
They said we
For
were
45
minutes. We sat trying to figure out where to go while we're paying a babysitter. And they just started laughing, and we started laughing.
Yeah, the babysitter's on the clock, and we can't figure out what we're going to do.
So there's 9 core patterns in the book. Some of them are very similar, and if the more unusual ones, we'll say, look at this one and see how closely it fits. But these are the most common ones that we just role-played for you. And they are at the root of your marriage problems. This repetitive dance that you do over and over again is the thing that drives you crazy. And they're rooted in your historical attachment styles and how they play out in a relationship.
So in order to grow, here we're going to move into how do we get out of this, okay? Like Mark said, I love that. And isn't that how the gospel is? We start off with the bad news. I'm holy, you're not. There's a gap between us, a big one. You have sin, I am holy. You're separated from me, we don't have a relationship. And then God provides a solution because he loves us so much. And that's what we're doing today. We're saying, all right, here's the problem we find ourselves stuck in. I want you to look at a quote on page 13. Right in the middle of the page on page 13. A gentleman by the name of Irvin Yalom said, if there's a way to better, it extracts a full look at the worst. That's really important. One of the biggest struggles Kay had when we gave our lives to Christ in 1972, before most of you were born, it was hard. Kay had a hard time with that whole idea of sin and that there was a problem. But I love it. If there's a way to better, it extracts a full look at the worst, because I have to understand where I'm coming from in order to know where I'm going. A map, you were here. Here's another line. In order to arrive at what you are not, you must go through the way which you are not. You have to learn new ways to unbecome something. Otherwise, we simply wash, rinse, and repeat over and over and over. Let's talk about the growth goals really quickly, Kay, for the voider. Can I tell them what I think I saw in you? Sure. As to how you grew? Well, she got out the F words. And she realized that she had feelings that she never knew she had. Now, Kay is one of the most sensitive people on the planet in terms of her innate temperament. And she is very, very sensitive. She feels things a lot, but she didn't once upon a time know how to explain them, access them, reveal them, explore them, let alone share them. When she went to college, she went to the library and got out books and read through the books and decided all by herself where she was going to go to school. She didn't have a parent talk to her about it, drive her around, do an exploration, visit campus. She made decisions all by herself. As Kay began to, by the way, stress and pain made us have to turn to asking ourselves, what is in my soul? Remember last night, my soul's distressed to the point of death. Come watch and pray with me. Jesus proactively told who he was with, his safe people, what was going on. A lot of us have a lot of shame. We don't want to tell anybody we hurt inside. Then I saw you take those feelings and take them to God, and then you took them to me. And you ultimately asked for help. But before that, with those videos last night, and alongside of that, you had to acknowledge where your starting point was, that something was taken away from you. So that sensitivity of who you were in that infancy picture, of the lights and the sound, your mom doing all this, trying to get your attention, the diverted eye gaze. You also learned to look at me and to be able to talk to me and look at me like you're doing right now. And that was a real turning point. So for the last 35 years, you have grown to a place where you're no longer that avoidant, dismissive person. And you have higher levels of empathy. What would you add to your journey?
Just it sounds so simple, and it wasn't simple.
No.
Because you feel like a toddler learning something you should have learned a long time ago. And you feel like, this is so hard. I mean, when he first would ask me what I feel, I didn't know. I had to look at the feeling word list, and then at first I would be guessing. Maybe this. I'm not really sure. And the more you do something, the more aware you are. And I prayed, Lord, you had feelings. You wept in the garden. I can't even remember the last time I cried. I think it was when my parents got a divorce when I was 17. I don't think I've cried since then. Give me back my feelings. And I didn't wake up tomorrow morning with the next feelings, all my feelings. But I made it a prayer request that I felt like I've been robbed of something God created me to have. My parents didn't mean to do that. They just didn't know how to process their own emotions or let alone ask anyone else.
Because their parents didn't know how to process their emotions.
Right. And then the body is the first place of awareness that emotions come, and avoiders learn not to pay attention to their body as well. It's just like your body signals things, and if you don't listen, or you shut your body down, which you have to do to detach from emotions, you aren't able to access those cues, but you can learn to. And so asking for help was like so hard. I remember staring at the phone and thinking, this is when you're supposed to call a friend. And I'd be like, yeah, I don't need a friend. God would say, no, this is when you pick the phone up and you call a friend. But I don't want to. I know, but do it anyway. I mean, I would have these arguments staring at the phone with myself and with the Lord. Okay.
So, Kay,
the pleaser.
what did you observe about my growth journey?
I remember, couples don't usually start out in the same place. When I first kind of became aware of this, and I started to try and learn feelings, about maybe 5 months in, he said, are you almost over this feeling stuff hump that you're going over? And I really thought about it, and I said, no, I'm not almost over it. I'm never going to be over it. I'm going to find my feelings. I'm going to have them, and I know it'll change our relationship. But I'm committed to gain something that I lost. He didn't go away hopping and skipping. He was like, oh no, she's changing. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. So change puts some stress on a marriage, but if I could have known where God was taking us or where we were headed, I would have run instead of dragging my feet. But
You would have run toward it.
Towards it.
Not from it.
From it, right.
I just want to clarify
Thanks
that.
for helping me out.
Because
I
some
wanna
of the
run
people,
towards it, yes.
some of the people out there are saying, I like running from things.
I'm running right now. Okay, so the pleaser, the first thing I noticed is that he stood up to one of my step-parent on the phone. I needed to do it, but I couldn't, so I handed the phone to him, and he set a boundary and spoke words I couldn't even speak yet, and that was new for him too. Learning to say no, learning to set a boundary, learning to access your anger, learning to be honest. Pleasers aren't honest. It took us 15 years before we had an honest conversation. And we were scared to death because I know this is going to hurt your feelings, but here we go. I know you're not going to like hearing this, but here we go. And so if you're an avoider-pleaser combo, honesty is probably not high on your, it's probably a growth goal for you, is to learn to be more honest and speak the truth in love.
Well, this honesty is about what's inside me. You see, I could speak honestly about what I saw in the world or truth, or I could really talk honestly about what the Bible says, because I was speaking somebody else's voice by reading the Bible. It took me a while to figure out that one. I was confident there, but I realized it wasn't my opinion I was sharing. And I had to learn to share my opinions.
Yeah, you're right. So there's more here.
It's on page 15. Read it yourself.
And now, Amy and Mark, vacillator.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mylan and Kay. They took 70 years of attachment research and they put it into attachment core pattern therapy. So any relationship dynamic, your son, daughter, you, yourself, your husband, whoever, you can stack vacillator, avoider, pleaser, and you can come up with, what does conflict look like? Do you see it? Do you not see it? What is the nervous system? What is the prescription to fix the problem? And it's a reproducible protocol. And I'm so grateful for that, because working in mental health, there's no pill that can fix a bad relationship. There's no pill that can do what this work does. So I'm really thankful for that. Thank you. So something that, as a vacillator, I had to learn to be able to understand my triggers, acknowledge my triggers, and get a handle on my nervous system. Being an ICU nurse, like the autonomic nervous system, it can save somebody's life. It just flips on, it's dopamine, it's norepinephrine, like it just moves, right? Like, and it's a good, in that setting, it's good. But in a relational setting, you have to recognize that your nervous system wants to drive you, wants to control you, and can do that, like the Tesla. But you have to tell your nervous system, it's time to take a back seat. So I had to realize, like, I need to let myself control my nervous system and not let it control me. And so understanding our triggers and power of association is really important. Some therapists are trained in EMDR training, which is a reprocessing therapy, and it helps you to recognize when your nervous system goes into that fight or flight and how to go back into that rest or digest. So the power of association is so powerful, and for vacillators, I think it is even more compounded because of our past hurts. But think about war veterans. When they hear fireworks, what is the association going on? Being shot at. So the nervous system flips on, fight or flight, there's a threat. Is there an active threat? No. It is sometimes, and it's true, but sometimes it pops on because of a past association versus a present thing. So just kind of being aware of that.
It's not as strong as you think it is, the threat, in the moment.
But in our minds, it's real. And we are activated. We're ready to fight, flee, hide, whatever. Like, we're activated. And so, but what I want to empower you here is when we're activated, even talking about it, right? What's going on in your body right now? You feel those sensations, right? Being activated is when the vacillator needs to learn to pause. Anything that comes out of my mouth right now, it's probably going to be all right-brained, not going to come with a lot of logic, and I'm going to say probably more than I want to say. So notice. So anger, use anger as an indicator of what's going on, because anger comes on, fight or flight comes on. I need to pause. What's under the anger? Pull out the soul words or the F words and see what's under the hood. See what's going on. Anger is often a secondary emotion for the vacillator. And that's something that just kind of helped me, like, pause. I'm angry. Like, what do? Maybe I do go to the gym. Not in protest, but hey, like, I need to go to the gym.
Or a pause.
For a pause, not a detachment. Pause is different than detachment, so be aware of that. And yeah, so I brought this Coke today. Still cold. Got it at the gas station. This is just kind of a good demonstration of what it's like to be inside the nervous system of a vacillator. Notice, like, people already want to flee from me, and now I'm feeling like abandoned.
Because we don't know what you're going to do with that.
They don't know. Anyway, so all this is going on, right? This carbonation here.
I like water. I like being wet. Go ahead.
The pleasers come near, but they don't know what's coming. All this carbonation is internal dialogue. I'm going to use the trigger of being misunderstood. Misunderstood loops into rumination. So all of the rumination of every single time I was ever misunderstood is in here right now. All this carbonation. What I need to do is find a place separate from my family, take this and set it down and wait till the bubbles come down. And what I've learned is sometimes less is more for the vacillator. So all that internal dialogue, if I can bring it down to about 2 sentences. You know what? I was feeling really misunderstood earlier. I would like you to hear me out later. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, I have my opportunity. So if I go into a calm nervous system later, I can probably feel understood and feel validated. Because think about, you get triggered because you have an underlying need that's not met, being misunderstood. So what is the need? Being understood. So Mark has some good acronyms for you later, and I think acronyms are very helpful to kind of pause, right? Because it's like, well, in the hospital, I can deal with a chaotic situation in a calm nervous system. Why? Because I've been trained and conditioned to do it. So you can train your brain and condition your brain to be able to do this work, but you have to figure out how to pause, and then you also have to figure out how to press play when the time is right.
What was the, this is a vulnerable question here, what was the growth goal you saw in me? That was maybe the biggest one.
There's so many.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Learning to wait, I think that was good. Like just learning to wait, you know, and then our arrivals and departures got better. But I think it goes hand in hand because we can, like, the V and V can both activate each other. So we need to learn how to, you know, and sometimes one thing else I was going to say about the Coke is, let's say that I open that cap, right? And I just sprayed the whole kitchen sink all over. Like, I need to learn to walk that back in that moment. Like, you know what, Mark? I shouldn't have said all that. I'm sorry. Can I have a do-over? And right away, don't justify the anger. Don't justify the overspill. Like, know that, hey, like, this is something that, you know, like, we can be very activated. Like, the amygdala in the brain is the fight or flight. It's literally called flipping the lid. When we do that and we spew all over our spouse, like, we need to be quick to ask for forgiveness. So we've both got better at the do-over. 2 other things I want to say is one of the quotes I love from Carl Jung. He is a psychoanalyst from the early 1900s. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So you have to be consciously aware of the unconscious. All this stuff is going on. So bring it to where it needs to be. Growth is sometimes hard, but you know what's harder? Being in a miserable relationship. Much harder. And scripture. One of my favorite scriptures is Ephesians 4. Be kind, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as Christ has forgiven you. And just find that way to reset.
Okay, I love that example when Amy came up with that and said she was going to do that. It really represents what's happening inside of the vacillator because they have these anxiety builds, much like when you shake that up. It's all that content under pressure. Some of us need to actually come with those stickers. Have you seen those stickers that say contents under pressure? You'll see them on canisters. Some of us need those stickers because that's what's going on inside us. All of that pressure gets built up. It's like we get shaken up inside, and then the anger is the way to release that pressure. That's what Kay was saying, that vacillators feel better after they've had the angry outburst. They know it's destructive, but they just relieved all of that tension. So I would say for you, one of the main growth goals I've seen in Amy is recognizing idealization, because that leads then to disappointment. Okay, you set yourself up for disappointment with idealization, and Amy's learned to catch that when it's happening, and that's lessened the explosion of the Coke bottle. So I'm going to talk about both the controller and the victim here. So the controller and the victim, this is really an abusive relationship. This is the cycle of abuse, okay? And this is one of the hardest combos because these folks really have had very little to no secure attachment experiences. Growing up in a home that's just chaotic, you don't know what's about to happen, it's abusive, it's dangerous, it's everyone for themselves. And so really they're just in states of survival all the time. For the control, it's learning to understand why they want control, why they're so rigid, why they want to control people, to control their environment. It's all about predictability, because unpredictability meant that they were unsafe. And so now they need to hold on to the control. The thing is you can't have a healthy relationship that's like this, that's one up, one down. There needs to be balance. And so you can only have balance by learning to let go of some of that control, realizing that not everybody is going to be unsafe like your parent was. Recognize when the anger is building. They're similar, as Kay was saying, the vacillator and the controller is similar because they have these angry outbursts. But often for the controller, it's like there's just no space between the stimulus and the reaction. It just happens right away. And so it's learning to create space in that. And you may need to have a recovery group to learn how to do that. It's hard for a controller just to continue to do this work by themselves. Often they don't want to seek help because there's a big shame button underneath there. They were put in the one down position. They were abused in childhood, and they never want to go to that shame place again. So the anger makes them powerful and stops them from going there. So joining groups are often a way for them to see it wasn't just me, there's other people who had the same experience as me. And vulnerability breeds vulnerability. I can learn to be safe. For the victim's the opposite. The victim's in the down row. They've learned not to have a voice. Likely in childhood, they didn't get to say stop. They didn't get to say no. So they've not developed an adult voice. They can't do that in adulthood. And in fact, their freezing was the most adaptive mechanism for them, because if I just froze, then eventually it would stop. Because what happens, the reason why victims dissociate, and by the way, it's not a voluntary response, or I should actually say reaction. It's not a voluntary reaction to dissociate. Because what happens when there's a danger but there's no escape? What happens when you're at home and a parent comes and gets into your bed in the middle of the night to sexually abuse you? There's no escape. So there's this adaptive mechanism that has been built into us, that I believe God's built into us, that when there's this level of threat and we can't escape, the brain turns offline. There's a separation between the mind and the body. That area, the Broca's area in the brain, the responsible for language, it just turns off. And so oftentimes victims don't even recognize their trauma. They don't recognize when they're going into this dissociation reaction. And so, as Amy mentioned, there's a therapy called EMDR. It's a reprocessing therapy. So learning to, in a safe place, to be able to put narrative. Remember what I said, you can't have narrative memory for something unless you have words. So learning to put words to the trauma that happened to you. What happens with that is it moves from one part of the brain to another part of the brain, the long-term storage. So that is often necessary for somebody who is a victim. And support groups are good for them. They need to learn to break the cycle of abuse. You can't truly choose to stay in a relationship if you don't feel like you can leave. Because then there's just one option. I have to stay. I can't get out. They have something called learned helplessness. They don't believe that they can get out. They don't have any agency. And on the outside, it looks like, well, it's just easy, just leave. But they've learned not to do it. They've been trained and conditioned that they can't leave. They're stuck in fear. And both the controller and the victim, often these folks, they use addictions. Addictions numb, addictions distract, addictions help you deal with the pain. But it's just an escape. And oftentimes recovery programs don't really get you all the way there, because the focus of recovery programs oftentimes is sobriety. I've been sober for 10 years, 20 years. Well, guess what? The addiction is just the way that you're dealing with the pain. So sobriety, once you can get to sobriety, well, now you've been able to move the thing out of the way so that you can actually deal with the problem. And then lastly, what I would say for both of them is learning to grieve. You have to learn to grieve what happened to you. Oftentimes victims and controllers, it's, I made it out. It happened to me. I don't want to go back there to the past because it was so traumatic. But you have to learn to dig that little kid out of the rubble to again, create this story of what happened to them. The controllers, they don't want to have empathy for themselves. They can't have empathy for themselves because in childhood, no one had empathy for them. When they showed vulnerable emotions, they were put down. So they can't go there. And the victim is really just the lightning rod for the controller's pain. So both of them need to learn to break the cycle. And sometimes the way to break the cycle is a separation when it's abusive. Sometimes that's the way to heal the relationship, is I've got to get away from the person so that both of us can do our separate healing. It's a strong decision, important decision that I would recommend being made with a therapist. But you can't heal in a storm. You can't grow in a storm. Okay, so you have to get out to calmer environments to be able to grow.
You know, you're talking about anger a lot and what to do with it. One of my favorite verses in the Bible, very obscure. Most people have never heard about it before, but it's in Nehemiah 5:6. Nehemiah was rebuilding Jerusalem, all right? And there was lots of conflict and difficulties amongst people and local powers, and Nehemiah was one of the people that God was using to rebuild. And in Nehemiah 5:6, it says this. Nehemiah is speaking about himself. He says, then I was very angry when I heard their outcry and these words. He was very angry at what he heard. Then there's this incredible line, and I consulted with myself. I stopped and thought. I put a pause into the process, and I consulted with myself. And then I contended with the nobles, or the people that were the problems. He put this pause in there. I think, Mark, you said this also, that we do this. We go, incident, bam. Incident, we react that fast. What we need to learn to do is feel an emotion, but stop and pause. Consult with yourself. Where does this anger come from? I've been angry my whole life. I always get angry. Everybody's a lightning rod. Mark, the person that's next to me becomes a lightning rod. And I always feel better after I explode. Now here's what happens. A lot of people think, well, I was born this way. And this is just the way I am. This is the way I'm going to be. That's how wives talk when they're upset. I've heard so many women in my office say it just like that. But twice today, Mark and Amy have talked about your story or your narrative. And that's one of the things we do when we consult with ourselves. We go, how is my narrative? Another word I like to use, how does my autobiographical sketch fit into what I'm feeling right now? And then I must do something different with it rather than how I've been trained. Kay, you had something else you wanted to say right there. And then Mark and Amy, maybe another comment or two if you had it.
The word grief. Does God grieve?
Mm-hmm.
Did Jesus grieve? Loud sobbing, crying, and tears. So if we're going to be like Jesus, do we need to know how to grieve? We do. And it's like that was a lost skill. I could not cry. And that's another thing I asked the Lord. Give me back my tears. They get stuck. They won't come out. And he answered that prayer. We're going to show you some ways that he used to answer that prayer. But do avoiders feel grief? Not really. It's so locked down in the avoider. How about pleasers? What do they cry about? Maybe their kids getting hurt or a Hallmark movie. But when I ask a pleaser, when have you cried about your own pain? Oh, I don't know. I don't even remember when. I don't even really pay attention to my pain. The vacillator, do they cry? Usually if they cry, it's angry tears. Or they cry in private while they're beating themselves up, which is the private shame pit. Vacillators all have a private shame pit, and no one knows it's there, and it's where they go beat themselves up, and they don't ruminate on you at that point. They ruminate about how stupid and bad they are. And you would not believe what they say to themselves in the shame pit.
Wow.
Horrible things. If you're married to a vacillator, ask them about their shame pit and what they say to themselves in it, and you will be shocked. I hope it will make you cry. And controllers and victims. So I am so grateful that God taught us again how to grieve. Because we find as we get older, there's just more and more loss. Our friends are getting sick, our friends are dying, we're getting old, the body doesn't work as well as it used to. You watch your adult kids struggle. There's a lot of things in this world to grieve. It's a very broken world. And if we can't do it, we are locking down a part of a system that God created to relieve an enormous amount of stress. Research on tears shows that a good cry releases endorphins. And I don't mean a little leaky tear. A leaky tear is fine, but I'm talking crying. Like you could hear yourself, somebody maybe in the neighborhood could hear you if you had I used to turn the radio on really loud, and I was always alone at first, because I couldn't show anybody this side of me. And then I would just say, okay, Lord, let me cry. And when I really got down to sobs, it kind of was shocking that I didn't know you could cry that hard, or I'm sure I did as a baby. I don't remember it. So grief is something that as you learn to do it with your spouse and be honest about it and share about it, it's such a bonding experience. We have grieved over each other's childhoods. I've grieved over what happened to him when he was a little boy. He's grieved over my childhood. And grief restores and heals. Until you tell your story and feel the feelings that go with it, they're stuck inside. What happened as we did this is the triggers they almost lost all their power. When he used to come close, it would be like, oh, you're so needy, go away. And then it'd be like, oh, you're cleaning. That was one of his stress responses. I finally realized, I waited until he was done, but I finally realized that you must be stressed about something. It's Sunday night, and this is when you always go into your cleaning mode. Pick 3 feeling words and tell me what's underneath. So what was irritating became a source of compassion.
My garage is dirty now.
Oh my gosh.
With healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a downside to growth, a messy garage.
I want it to look like a firehouse, but I just can't seem to get it that way. So I don't even worry about it now. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys wanted to say?
Is this where we're talking about our own growth goal, or are we going to talk about that in the Secure Connector?
Oh, that's a good point. Let's just turn to the Secure Connector page and show them what it is, and then pick one.
Okay, so turn to page...
I'll also say one more thing.
Page 9, while she's speaking.
Kaiser did a study on trauma and adverse childhood experiences. And thinking about the nervous system again, that fight or flight. When the grizzly bear comes home every night, what does that do to your nervous system? What do years and years of inflammatory cortisol happen? What happens in your body? We're all learning. Inflammation is not good for the body. So triggers are inflammation. So turning our triggers into indicators of ways we can actually soothe and comfort each other is very, very healing. So I hope that there's more to come on adverse romantic experiences and the healing that can come.
Yeah, and cortisol is a stress hormone.
Yes.
That comes out when we are traumatized and stressed, and it is not great for our bodies, or it's just not a healthy one to have. It can be helpful in small doses. It helps you wake up in the morning, get ready for the day, but in massive doses, it's very harmful. Okay, we're turning to page 9, and these are the traits of the Secure Connector. These are our growth goals. This is where we're headed. I realized that 35 years ago, I couldn't hardly do any of these Secure Connector points, and that I can do most of them now. So that's our goal, and we want to grow into all of these. So what would you guys say would be like one of these that you really latched onto and said, I'm going to work on that really hard, take that to the cross and ask God to help me learn this? Page 9.
Page 9. So I think I don't have that in front of me, but there's one on there that says, I think about knowing 7 or 8 feelings.
Here, I'll loan you my copy.
Thank you.
Loan me.
I will give it right back to you.
Because there's a space now in my book that I don't want to be there.
Yeah, so it's number 3. It says, I can list 8 feelings I experience on a regular basis. So here's one thing that I want to share with you. This is one of the major growth goals it's not in your syllabus, but for everybody. Can you put that first slide up, please, Sammy? So Mylon was talking about consulting with yourself. So how do I consult with myself? So everybody needs to learn how to develop something called an observing self. How can I look at what's happening on the inside of me and where that comes from? Now, if you look in the research, to grow into a secure attachment style, because you're not stuck with this, by the way, you can grow out of it. You grow by starting with creating a coherent narrative. So what do those 2 words mean? Coherent means it makes sense. Narrative is story. So how do I make sense of my story? And so it's learning to do this in the moment. So what I want you guys to get out of this, consulting with yourself, is learning to ask yourself these 4 questions. What am I feeling right now? That's going to the soul word list. Not just the anger, what's underneath the anger. What am I feeling? What's the vulnerable emotion? What just happened right before I felt that way? What's the association that is going on? What just triggered me? How am I reacting right now? Am I withdrawing? Am I cleaning? Am I getting mad? What's going on? And then where did that come from? Where in my history have I felt this before? With whom? And with what situation? As you do that, as you learn to take space and do that, you will be able to consult with yourself. Like Jeremiah, you will be able to start to develop this coherent narrative, and then you can work these growth goals. So everybody has to learn to do this. I'm just going to show you how I learned to do it as a vacillator, okay? But this is just, I'm showing you here, or I'm talking about the observing self. This is for everyone. Can you put the next slide up, Sammy? So I had to figure out what were the feelings that were recurring on the inside for me, and I came up with an acronym for myself so I could figure that out. I realized I was feeling misunderstood often, unseen and unheard often. I was getting disappointed from idealized outcomes. I was being made to wait. Waiting is a trigger, as we were talking about. I was perceiving abandonment and rejection. It wasn't actually real abandonment. It wasn't actually real rejection, but it was me bending down to tie my shoe, and Amy continued to walk while we were on a walk. And where are you going? That would trigger me. Or, can you help me clean up? No, I'm too tired right now. Well, that's another abandonment. Or can I give you a hug? No, you're really sweaty. Could you take a shower first? That's rejection. This stuff happens all of the time for vacillates. And I had to realize this was happening for me. And then shame. I'm not good enough. Shame comes from the rejection, and shame comes from making mistakes. And so I learned that anytime I felt that anger inside, I just cycled through this list to say which one of these were happening for me, okay? And then I had to realize, how was I reacting? Could you put the next slide up, Sammy? And so this is another acronym I created for myself. It's called bad prod, and this is the way that I react. Vacillators tend to blame. They blame the other person for being the cause of their feelings because they're not very good at looking on the inside, and then they get angry. And then they devalue the other person. They think of all the ways that person's hurt them and let them down. This is where the always and the never statements come out. And then they protest. I'm going to have an angry outburst. I'm going to sulk. I'm going to pout. I'm going to stonewall. I'm going to withdraw, hoping you're going to come after me. And that doesn't work. And then they feel despair and hopelessness. And then they detach. You know what? I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And I had to realize when this was happening for me. And so I cycled through my mud walls, I cycled through my bad prod, and I owned, this is my attachment style happening right now. Yes, something was happening for me. You mentioned earlier, maybe there is a threat. Something was happening for me in the moment that I didn't like, but I was having a $50 reaction to a $5 problem. And that's what I had to own in myself. And as I learned to do that, the storm inside calmed down. And I was able to stay in the logical left brain and also be able to learn to connect with my emotional right brain, but without all of this reactivity happening on the inside.
Awesome. Very thankful for those acronyms, because sometimes, like, when you're activated, you just kind of need to just grab one and, like, go do something with it.
Then you can come back to your spouse and say, wow, I was triggered, and here's what I figured out. Here's the feeling it caused. Here's the thing I wanted to do. And this reminds me of childhood when I did this, that, or the other.
Now, think about, the baby had no words. And a lot of times, when we're activated, like, we're nonverbal, huffy, puffy, all that. Like, we need to grow out of that and have the words. If you can name it, you can tame it.
So I need that paper back because my notebook is nervous.
The mail.
Yeah.
It feels better now. So some of us are OCD because we have to put that paper back, or we have to straighten something, or we have to clean something, or we have to do something. Why do we do that? We create external order to try and soothe internal disorder. And it's important to be able to recognize that and know and understand, lest we just simply flare up over and over again. I was at a restaurant here locally, not far from here, and we were with another couple. And this two young ladies were there, and they had 2 or 3 glasses of wine, and they hadn't seen each other in a long time, and it got very loud. And in the booth next to them, the man in the booth next to them went, shh, 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 shh. Oh, look at you guys. Uh-oh. So everything was okay for about 2 minutes. Then all of a sudden, one of the women stood up, and she walked over to the booth, and she says, "Nobody shushes me."
She yelled.
She yelled, "Nobody shushes me." Then it began to escalate, higher and higher and higher, and she was super angry. She was walking all over the restaurant, yada, yada, yada. And I was saying to the Lord, "Lord, I'm off duty tonight. I'm off duty." Now, I'm a martial arts instructor and I'm a counselor. I don't want to use either one of those skills tonight, not at all. The Lord didn't answer that prayer. He didn't say, "Yes, I'm going to take this off your plate." She was marching around. She grabbed a freestanding chair. She pulled it right next to me, sat down next to me with her back toward me, yelling at this man across the restaurant. She was so close to our booth that her hair was on my arm. So I said to the Lord, "I guess the answer is no, huh?" So I'm sitting here, and I put my arm up because I didn't want her to wheel around and give me an elbow. So I'm sitting here like this, and I whispered to her, "Who shushed you when you were a little girl?" I took a deep breath before I said that. She turned around and she said, "Who in the blankety blank are you?" I said, "My name's Mylan. I'm a counselor. Somebody shushed you and somebody hurt you when you were a little girl. I'm so sorry that happened to you." And she got mad again. Then all of a sudden she started crying. See, what was driving her bus right then? History. History. Yeah, now, and alcohol. It loosened up history. The social lubricant.
Or Coca-Cola.
Loosens up your history and your vocabulary. You start using that feeling word list. And this is what I meant by right brain to right brain. And within 5 minutes, she had come down from here all the way down to here, and she said, "I hate counselors. They've always been doing this. They keep trying to get me to look at my history, and I hate them for that." And I go, "It must be miserable. I'm sure it's hard, but somebody really hurt you when you were a little girl. I'm so sorry." And she left the restaurant because I connected with her. But that history drives us. And even a little shush can set you off. And she had no control over it. Something else was driving the bus. Now, is there anything else you want to say before the break?
You were also a lifeguard.
I was also a lifeguard. What does that have?
You were a good lifeguard.
Yes, that's true. That's the
You're a good
lifeguard part of
rescuer.
you's in there.
Oh, yes, I've been rescuing a lot of, I've rescued people. Okay, but I don't do it unhealthfully anymore. Okay, I just want to say I do it when I choose to do it. We were in a parking lot the other day, and somebody had spilled stuff all over the place. And Kay said, "Aren't you going to get out and help them?" I said, "No, somebody else will." See, I've grown.
See, not a pleaser anymore.
Okay, Kay, would you
All right.
introduce?
So
we're going to take
we are going to, in a minute, take a break. But first of all, I want to know if Jason and Marina are still here. And if you are still willing.
Right over here.
There they are. You guys still up for it? All right. So we're going to ask you, after you take a break, to go to the sound booth. And they're going to mic you with Mark and Amy's mic so that you don't have to do the handheld thing. And then you'll give them those mics back after we're done. So you're going to need to bring up your notebook, a pen, and yourselves. And I think we should all give our first round of applause to our volunteers. All right, so we're going to take a 20-minute break. And come on back.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. It was so great to have you with us. If you have any questions about our church or if you need prayer in any way, please visit our website at vineyardln.com. See you next time.
Give us a couple minutes.